Right, thanks for coming, guys. We're going to discuss creating diagrams in Revit, simple sun study diagrams and color diagrams to explain your site context for your project, and also exporting Revit views and sheets into PDF. So let's get started. Okay. So here I have my site information. I have my building massing as an import, or rather a link, which we discussed last week, and also my property data map, which outlines the streets and the building outlines and also the property outlines. So all this relevant information, including my building, is part of what I want to include into my diagram. So how we go about this: if you don't have a 3D view open, simply go to View, tab, and select 3D View, or you could hit this default 3D View button at the top, and you should have something just like this. If I close here, there we go. We could use this navigational cube to rotate around and select which orientation we want our models to be in. So we can even put it in an elevation view or a plan view, but right now I'm holding Shift and the mouse button to pan and orbit around my building model. So once I have something that I want to, once I have an angle that I want to present, say this top left corner, then I could zoom into where I want to start my diagram. But I'm sure all of you don't want to have, information that's not pertinent, like these buildings are not going to affect my building here that much compared to what's closer. So what we'll be looking at is, if I drag this project browser down, is the extents panel of our 3D view. So if you have nothing selected, you should have this option. We'll look at crop view, crop region visible, and annotation crop. What crop view allows is to toggle on and off if we want to have a border that crops parts of our model out of the view. And this border is selected through crop region visible. So if I check mark yes and apply, then you'll see that our border has appeared. What I could do is click the border and drag the dots to change my extents, or I could drag and hold the border, and that will also change the boundaries of it. And in order to toggle it on, as I said, crop view, if I check mark that and apply, then everything outside of the boundary is now hidden. And so you'll use these often. The other shortcut for this is at the bottom of the bar. This is our crop view toggle. So we can toggle it on and off. And this is to show our border and hide our border. There we go. We also have annotation crop, which introduces this new dotted boundary. And so what this does is anything that's an annotation will be able to fit within this boundary. And sometimes you want text that's outside of your diagram. And so this is a great way to organize how your text is shown. So I could type green roof. So what I did is press TX, that's the shortcut for text, add my leader line, just like that. And so if I click my boundary for the crop extent, and I drag the annotation boundary, if it's overlapping, it'll disappear, and if it's within, it'll remain. So that's one way to start. So you have simple 3D massing with your text. What can we do now? We can create an exploded axle. That's what we'll try to do, or exploded isometric, rather. I do not want this property data information. So one thing I could do is I could go to the Insert tab, manage links. And because these two external files are linked, I could select my property data map and unload it. So what that does, it severs the link between Revit and the reference file, and it will not be updating, but it still manages to retain the file path, so you could easily reload it. Okay, and it should reappear. Or I could simply click the property data map and type EH, which is element hide, and your element will be hidden in this new space called reveal hidden elements. And so I simply typed RH to open this view, and anything that's highlighted in this like dark red purplish color will be elements that are hidden, and you can unhide it through this button up here, or you could type EU for the shortcut. So I want to keep it in this space, in this hidden space, and so I'll type RH again to exit this mode, and now my property data map is hidden properly. What I can do now is, I'll just delete this for a second, is select an object on my exploded axo or for my model, and go to this view section in modify. And there's a few different commands that we can play with. We have displace elements, which allows us to drag some of the building elements out of their current position into a new position. We can hide some elements. We can override their graphics so that they can include different patterns or colors. And so you can outline specific portions of your building, specific portions of your site context. There's also a selection box, which isolates elements in 3D mode. And this one is linework, which we can change up the default line weights or line types in our model and provide, for example, an outline. So I'll show you some of these step by step. Line work. So right now, you'll probably get by category, which means that those are the default lines based off either your view templates or whatever Revit has in place for these building elements. What I want to do is outline this mass. So I could select wide lines and click the exterior portions of these building elements to highlight this. And so this saves you a step from going to Illustrator if you decide you want to create a diagram of your isometric, axonometric, whatever. And so that, yeah, you can highlight different parts of your building now. I think this wide line is not wide enough. So if you feel similar to your model, you can go to Manage tab at the top. We'll go to Additional Settings, which drops down several options. And what we'll choose is Line Styles. And right now we don't have many options. We have thin lines, medium lines, wide lines, each with their own line weight. What we could do is create our own new line type. I'll call this outline, and it will be in our lines category. We want that there. And here we can select the line pattern. I'll keep it as solid, but there's many different options such as dotted, dash dotted, property lines, etc. I'll choose a blue, so it's extra highlighted, and this will be something like 9. I hope that's not too big, maybe 8. Okay, and now when we go select our building model and choose line work, we'll have, no, we don't have this option. Okay.
We have outline. Yeah, you have outline below.
Did I? Oh, outline.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, where did I put it? Okay, and that should change. Yeah, that should change the lines. So if you have something like this where the elements are really close to each other, you could toggle or yeah, through different selection through the tab button. And whatever's at this bottom left corner will indicate what part of the model it is. So here I have the roof line, but I want to select the wall. There we go. So I could continue to click to create my outline. There we have a simple diagram identifying this building mass. What else can I do? Well, as I said, we could create an exploded axonometric. So I can select this roof element, and actually I'll select these walls as well. So I'm holding control and selecting all the elements, and I want the roof as well. So, or I selected the roof, didn't I? Okay, that's perfect. I'll go to the displace elements, and now this is a grouped set of elements that I could displace, and using this kind of gumball tool, I could take the grips and drag them in their respective orientation. Oh, this is what I forgot. I'll displace this too. So this will come up just below, or you could redo and include it in the selection. This is a little annoying. So if this is the case, this massing keeps popping up, what you could do is head over to this modify section. There'll be a pin with an X on it, and you can pin this down, and it's still selectable. So I'll go to this bottom right corner of the workspace, and there will be a toggle that allows you to have pin elements selected or not selected. So I'll turn it off, and you'll know it's off with the X sign, and it's still not pinned. So this is that. This is the pin command. There we go. And now I should be able to select only my building. Okay. And now that I have this mass that's above my ground floor, revealing my different rooms and elements such as the stairs and furniture, I can select this again and create a path which shows where this building mass had originally been placed. All right, what else can I do? I can change the color for this. And I guess this color will identify that it's an important part of the building. It's like a central, the central object, if you will. What I could do is select override graphics in view, or I could right click and access that option as well. Here I will select by element. So all the elements that are selected are going to be changed. If I chose category, anything that was a wall and a roof will all be selected. And there are several options that we can choose from. Projection lines are lines that are not cut, and cut lines are, as self-evidently, building elements that have been cut through either a section box or through a floor plan or a section. So what we are concerned with are projection lines, surface patterns, and surface transparency, in this case because there's nothing that's cut at the moment. Surface transparency will change how see-through this building element is. We don't want that. What I want to do is make this a vibrant color that is easily identifiable. So I'll go to surface patterns, this pattern drop down, and I'll choose solid fill, but you could choose different patterns to place onto these building elements. And my color will be something of an orange, just like that. Okay, okay. And now this should apply. And how come these walls were included? I think maybe did I do by category? I think that's probably what happened. So somebody's asking, does the displace elements tool ignore the height constraints placed on walls and such? Ignore the height constraints placed on walls and such. I think, so if I'm understanding what you're saying, are the dimensions that we've constrained these walls to remained? And the answer is yes. So whatever this element is created on within its building mass over here will remain, and it should not change. So this keeps all the element dimensions as they are, and they aren't editable or modified when in this mode. And this will not affect, if you had another 3D view, this will not affect these building elements. This is isolated, and you could revert it back to how it originally is in every other view through the reset button. So I'll undo that to bring it back. Okay, and I think because I selected by elements, all the other building walls have been turned orange as well. So we don't want that. Let's revert the change. Override by elements, or is it override by category? And we'll reset. And so now when we select this again and override by element, this should, I hope, only change these items, which yes, that it works. Okay.
Eric, just one question. So as I understand what you're explaining, that actually all these changes, these are changes to how the model is presented in a particular 3D view, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so this is view dependent. These changes will not be a global change to the model, say in your floor plan or your elevations. This is 3D view dependent.
Yeah, and all these extends properties, they're actually properties of the 3D view. And what probably you can find confusing, it's still named, this view is still named according to the general name, like 3D view in Revit, but it can be renamed now, right? So, and you can save you can have many 3D views, right? And under different names. So, and probably if you when you start to preparing a view for your diagram, probably it's wise to create a new view with a particular name and then to work in this view. Would it be like, do you agree, Eric? So
yeah, definitely keep a master 3D view, and then just make duplicates off it to create your diagrams. And all the changes that we're applying to this is, again, to reiterate, is graphic. So it's not changing the actual like color on your real model. Yeah.
Could you show in the project browser where these 3D views will go, like how we organize them?
Yeah. So right here, what I should have done is create a duplicate of this, but yes, you could select your master, create duplicate. That'll create, so right here, exactly. This is the actual model. Your displace tool is not going to affect the actual model. It's going to be view dependent, and it's all graphic changes. So that's what makes it good for diagrams, because you're not actually affecting the central model.
Yeah, the fact that they're identical now, it just because one is the copy of the other, but basically they are completely independent.
Mm-hmm. And if we go back to this view, what other options are available? We can hide some elements. So say you don't want this furniture, or let's say the stairs, because it's fewer items shown. You can hide the element or all the categories that are similar to this element, or as I mentioned with the building mass, you could simply type EH, and that should go into the reveal hiddens mode through RH, and that'll show you that that's there alongside with the property data maps. Okay, so this is a simple diagram with use of colors to help articulate important information that you want to show. And now we'll go discuss a little bit about sun diagrams and sun studies. So what I have here, I've already created a few views that have different sun settings depending on what time of the year it is. And in order to create that, we have three pertinent buttons. We have the visual style button at the bottom, the sun path, and the shadows. So I'll duplicate this view, duplicate, and it borrows all the settings that have been applied. So I have my shadows on and my sun settings on. So what we'll do before we turn on the shadow is click the sun path button and head into sun settings. And there's a few different things that we are want to change. The first is location, and by default I think it's set to Boston. So instead, okay, it'll have this option, Internet Mapping Services. We'll change that to default city lists and change Boston to Toronto, and then it'll apply whatever the sun, however the sun is setting and rising in Toronto, where it's latitude, longitude, azimuth, all that. And we could change the dates, or we could simply go to the presets, and there we have our summer solstice, winter solstice, different equinox, and that we could select the date. And I have 5 p.m. already for my 3 diagrams. I want to do something like 12 p.m. and have 3 different diagrams from that. And so if I select my shadows button, that will now appear. Sometimes your shadows are a bit harsh or dense or too dark. So by selecting the visual styles, which offers different ways to view your 3D model, instead go to graphic display options at the top. And you think that the shadows panel is what you want to choose, but actually it's the lighting section. And right at the bottom is where we can adjust how intense our shadows are. So if I brought this to 100, that's going to be, okay, that's nice, a nice graphic actually. But sometimes it's a little too intense and you can't read some of the information. Like these windows are a bit too dark to see, so you could change it to something like 20 and have more information readable, but also still have those shadows visible. What these ambient shadows selection does, that it provides more, I guess, detail in terms of shadows. Right now we just have shadows that are created from the sun hitting the building element and landing on either the plane of Revit or a building element. So this allows for more detail in terms of ambient lighting. So shadows close to each other might be darker if the building faces are close to each other, for example. I don't want that, so I'll just keep just cast shadows for now and apply. And what you can do now is rename this by right-clicking, changing your time to, say, 1 p.m. And it's not actually spring equinox, is it? It's summer solstice. Summer solstice. And continue duplicating your views. So we have this new copy of that summer solstice. Let's change the sun settings now, again, to winter solstice. And I could now apply 12, oh, was it 1 p.m. or 12 p.m.? Doesn't matter. There we go. And rename so that everything is identifiable and you won't be confused. In the final hour, what is what? Okay. So simply that was the sun study diagram. There's also options, I'll run by it quickly, to do videos. So you could see the sun path travel from sunrise to sunset. That option is available in single day or multi-day. And you could set the times from, say, morning to evening, or select sunrise to sunset and does that automatically. And having longer intervals, like 1 hour, will make a shorter video. Having shorter intervals will make a longer video. And once that's set, you can head into File, Export, and just at the bottom where it says Images and Animation, it'll give you the dialog options to set up your solar set. And I won't walk through this just because there's some more information that will take a bit of time to discuss, but feel free to play around with that. So again, it's Export, Images, Animation, and Solar Study, which can be determined through sun settings and choosing either single day or multi-day settings. Okay, now we want to export these diagrams. Let's head to the Sheets section. And so you can simply Control P or go to File and Print to create your, to go to your export settings and just export directly from this view. But it's a lot quicker to create sheets to bring your views into the sheets so that you already know how it's placed on a letter format or a tabloid format, for example. So let's go to Sheets and right-click it and hit New Sheet. Right now, I already have the title block that I want, but you'll probably have something like A1 metric and none as your options, which means you'll want to load a new title block so that you have the right sheet size. Under the title, you'll be directed to the libraries of Revit, and in the libraries, there'll be a folder called title blocks, and there's already a few available. Actually, I'm gonna go to Imperial so that I'm in the folder that I already created. I borrowed the 11 by 17 horizontal and I opened it, and this brings you to a new, this brings you to your sheet now. And in this case, I feel like some of you don't need this information. It's not important if you're making diagrams. So what you could do is you could select this title block and head to Edit Family, and this will open a new project file, a new Revit file of this title block, and its elements are now editable. So what I did was I just selected any items that weren't the border and deleted them. And this provides you with now a sheet boundary that's 17 inches by 11 inches, which is your tabloid. Now what you could do is go to Load into Project, which loads this new modification to the title block into your site context project file. Or you could also select Load into Project and Close, and what this will do is give you the option to save this new file over top or as a new file. So I want to say, I do want to save, but I want to save it as something else, and that will be my horizontal blank. And that's what's providing me my sheets now. I'm going to say no, so because I already have it on. Okay, so this is your sheet space. It's just your title block, and a bunch of nothingness. How do we get your view onto our sheets? So everything that's within this view dropdown are your building views, your floor plans, your ceiling plans, elevation sections, and 3D views, etc. One way is to drag, simply go to the sheet and drag the specific view that we want into the space, just like that. And we could do the same with our winter solstice. Okay, so I'm gonna note a few things. We can access this view space or this specific view by double clicking it, and now the workspace is editable. So I'm actually in the workspace and not in this sheet mode. And if I want to exit, I have to double click outside where there's no building elements that could be selected. So I'll double click around here, and now I'm back into the sheet space, and I could select and drag my sheet or select and drag my view. So these titles are useful, but if you don't like what Revit has for default, simply select this, head to the Properties tab, and it'll just be a drop-down option from here to select no title. So I'm going to do that for both of these. So my sheets laid out, and I have several sheets actually already preset or pre-made. I have my ground floor, and this is also 11 by 17, and exploded axonometric, my other sun studies. And so I will go to my Control P or File Print to open the export or print dialog. And there's options probably in school to directly print to the printers or select an Adobe PDF. From there, we have different sections that we'll discuss. So File basically chooses the location in your computer to place that PDF. And there's some options where you can create separate files if you have more than one sheet to print, or you can combine them all into a single file, and I'd suggest just keeping as combine multiple. Here we have a print range. Our current window would, if we were in a different view, say if we were in this view, we would be printing what's seen in our window. But what we want to do instead is print by views or sheets. So we'll have this new, when I select this is not grayed out anymore, so we have new selections. Everything that's within this drop-down is either a view, so your ceiling plans, your 3D views, your elevations, or a sheet. So you'll know what it's a sheet because it has sheet as the prefix. We'll deselect views because we don't want to print all those, and select everything that wants to be printed. I don't have anything on my second floor plan, so I'll leave that out, and I'll select OK. You can save for future settings, so if you know you'll be printing this set multiple times and modifying it frequently, then you could keep it as that. Say yes. I'll say, let's say diagrams set. Okay. Good. Now, the next important section is the settings, and simply click Setup to go into this new dialog panel. Here we can name this print setup, so it'll save whatever settings we have currently as a default. So if I change this from letter to tabloid and save, this will now keep my default as a tabloid paper. There are options for your orientation. Mine is landscape, so we'll keep it as landscape. Paper placement. So this is important. I would say paper placement and zoom. Currently it's fit to page, but for safe practice, always keep it as zoom and 100% so that you know your scale will be correct and that your sheet size is correct. And this will switch to offset from corner, but you want to keep it at center so that everything's aligned to your sheet size. Your tabloid will match the tabloid that you have your sheet. So I could save that, and I don't have to worry about having to switch to these options every time. Raster quality, for most part, keep it presentation or high. I have to say that if you have shadows on, then your output will automatically rasterize the drawing. So your sun studies will be a raster image versus if you don't have shadows, Revit will retain the vector properties of the lines and the building models. So we'll keep it at vector processing, and whatever is has raster elements like the shadows will automatically be changed to this. And we can select if we want color or grayscale or black lines. I'll keep it at color. So we have our exploded axonometric presented how we wanted it. Select OK. And this reverted to create separate files. So I'll click combine files, and I think everything else is fine. Select OK. And yep, well, this is our export test. Sure. And if you have large sheets, say when you get to construction docs and you have to print onto 24 by 36, this will take a little bit of while. So I suggest that if you have a deadline and you need to submit, export a good amount of time in advance because you don't want to be waiting. Okay, so I have my ground floor, my exploded axo, my sun diagrams, and you'll notice here that the lines look different because it's rastered since we've included shadows. But these should be fine. Yeah, these lines are kept vector. Alrighty, and if you do not want to print on sheets, go ahead and just type Control P to access the print export dialog and follow the same steps that we did to print onto the tabloid, just like that. But instead you're going to select current window and make sure that center and zoom should be applied, so that works as well. Individual export. And that should pop up just like that. Alrighty, I think that's all I wanted to present today. Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Anything like confusing or that's something that you missed that you want me to go over? Okay, so what we learned, I'll just do a review. What we learned today is how to create diagrams through our 3D model space. So what we did was in our master 3D view, we created a duplicate of it. So we have a new space to create our diagrams. We played around with the extents of our boundaries so that we can determine what area we want to present. And also to note that if you have these boundaries, then if you create a duplicate, it will be consistent. We learned about the view tools, and these are mostly graphic changes to our model. So it won't apply to all views. It's not a global change. It's just graphic changes to the specific view that we have open. And some of these changes include line weights, adding color. We can displace some elements so that we can move it around to present more information that's hidden from it. And then we learn about exporting from sheets, how to bring our views into a sheet, how to create a sheet by loading one that's a title block that's already preset from Revit, removing any information that we don't really need. And then from there, exporting our sheets and views and going through the different settings that we have in our dialog box. Okay, so that's all for today, and then next week we'll do something more challenging if you're up to it.
Okay, thank you, Eric. I just want to add a few things to excellent Eric's presentation. If guys, you're gonna use this, and we encourage you to use this, use Revit to create your diagrams for your reviews, please avoid using, like Revit provides very elaborated elements, and avoid using elaborated elements even if they look very nice. So if they're not related to the level of the details and to the level of development of your diagram, then avoid using them, because your professors can see it as part of your idea and can challenge that. Specifically, avoid using, if I'm not sure if it's related, Eric knows better, he can comment on that. Avoid using stairs. Stairs are very complex elements, and professors would like you to learn them before using predefined Revit stairs. So don't use stairs, even if you think that they would look nice or make your diagram nicer. So it's one thing. And another thing, I would like just to reiterate what Eric explained. So when you're working in Revit, you're working with a model of the building. So you're building the model, you are building it from elements which Revit provides, walls, roofs, etc., annotational tools, right? And you're creating a model. When you're working on the model, then you're using views to build the model. So views are different representations of the model. Some views are 2D, some views are 3D, and basically you're using these views to build the model. And then you need to present a representation of the view. Like when you're presenting your final, your presentation materials or your drafts, which you will send to an engineer, you won't just work with a view where, like with the same view which you have when you're working on the model. You want to present, you want to this view to have a particular look, this particular line weight, with shadows, without shadows, etc. And then you're preparing specific views which are targeted to a particular presentation style. And then you have this set, like this view, this displaced elements, etc., colored elements, right? So these views are presentation specific. They're different from the views where you're using to work on your model, right? Okay, you have these views and they're nice, but often we want to have several views on the same sheet. We want to add some comments to the elements. We want to the view, right? So we have templates for our sheets, right? And then we need something else. We cannot just print our views prepared for presentation. We want to prepare a set of like paper layouts, right? Paper composition, which will be printed automatically. That's what sheets are for. In Revit, like Eric has had a very simple, not hierarchical structure. It was like sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3, etc. But in a normal project, you will have different subfolders for sheets which you share to a structural engineer, for sheets which you share with your client, etc., etc. And each subfolder can have, you can have sheets, and then you put your particular views which should be on the sheet. You put them on the like on a particular sheet, and then you arrange them. You add comments. You can legends, etc., etc. That's what sheets are for. And you do not need to export this from Revit and work in another software. It's not the right approach. The right approach is to use your CAD or BIM software to prepare like your final layout, final layout of your sheets, which you will send to people you were working with.